Walk into any independent repair shop in America. Not the dealership with the espresso machine and the guy in khakis. I'm talking about the shop where the floor is stained with 40 years of oil and the owner still uses a flip phone. Look at what's parked in the back. Not the customer cars. The trucks these mechanics drive themselves. The ones they bought with their own money after spending their entire careers fixing everyone else's mistakes. You'll see the same 5 trucks over and over again. Exposed frames, faded paint, odometers that rolled past 300,000 miles years ago. And every single one of them still starts on the first try. These aren't the trucks with the best marketing. They're not the ones with the highest tow ratings on paper or the most impressive horsepower numbers. They're the trucks that refuse to die, the ones mechanics trust enough to stake their own wallets on. So today, we're going through the only 5 trucks that consistently hit 300,000 miles. Not according to some magazine editor who drove them for a week, according to the people who fix trucks for a living and then go home in these exact models. And there's one thing all 5 of them have in common, something that modern truck makers have completely abandoned. Let's start with the truck that might be the most obvious choice on this list, but for good reason. The second-generation Toyota Tacoma, built from 2005 to 2015, has become something of a legend in the truck world. And not because Toyota spent billions on Super Bowl commercials, because these things simply will not quit. IC Cars ran a study on which vehicles are most likely to hit 200,000 miles. The Tacoma dominated the list. But talk to any mechanic who's been working on trucks for 20 years, and they'll tell you 200,000 is just the warm-up. The 2.7-liter 4-cylinder in these trucks was designed to be understressed. It's not winning any races, it's not going to blow your mind with acceleration. But it's making power well within its limits, which means the internals aren't being tortured every time you press the gas pedal. The parts are cheap, the engineering is straightforward, there's no turbocharger waiting to fail at 80,000 miles, no direct injection system clogging up the valves with carbon, just a simple, naturally aspirated engine doing its job day after day. The frame rust issue is real, and Toyota even had a buyback program because of it. But if you find a Tacoma that was garage kept or lived its life somewhere without road salt, you've got a truck that will outlast your mortgage. Mechanics buy these because they know exactly what breaks, which isn't much, and exactly how to fix it when something does go wrong. No proprietary dealer tools required, no computer diagnostics that cost $200 just to read a code, just wrenches, a basic scanner, and maybe a weekend in the driveway. That simplicity is the whole point. And it's the same reason the next truck on this list has been quietly racking up miles for decades. The 10th generation Ford F-150, built from 1997 to 2004, represents something Ford has moved away from, a truck that prioritizes durability over features. Now, you have 2 engine choices that matter here, the 4.6-liter V8 and the 5.4-liter V8. Both are part of Ford's modular engine family, and both have proven themselves capable of hitting 300,000 miles with basic maintenance. The 4.6 is the more bulletproof of the two. It's slightly less powerful, but it runs cooler and has fewer known failure points. The 5.4 has more torque and capability, but you need to watch for spark plug issues on certain years. The 2-piece plugs can break off in the head if they've never been changed, and that's a repair that'll ruin your afternoon. But here's what matters. Consumer Reports tracked these trucks over the long haul, and the data is clear. Owners who kept up with oil changes, transmission fluid services, and basic maintenance were routinely hitting 250,000, 300,000, even 350,000 miles. The secret isn't magic, it's the absence of complexity. These trucks don't have adaptive cruise control that needs recalibration after a windshield replacement. They don't have air suspensions that cost $3,000 when they fail. They have body-on-frame construction, a solid rear axle, and engines that have been refined over millions of units. When something breaks, you can find the part at any auto store in America. When something needs diagnosis, any mechanic with 20 years of experience has already seen it 100 times. Modern F-150 ES are technological marvels. They have turbocharged engines that make impressive power and get surprisingly good fuel economy. But ask a mechanic if they'd rather have an EcoBoost F-150 or a 10th gen with the 4.6, and the answer tells you everything you need to know about long-term reliability. Speaking of engines that refuse to quit, we need to talk about the Vortec 5.3. The Chevy Silverado 1500 from 1999 to 2006 came with what might be the most durable small-block V8 ever mass-produced. The 5.3-liter Vortec has a reputation that borders on mythical among truck enthusiasts. And unlike some reputations, this one is backed by actual data. These engines use a simple pushrod design, 2 valves per cylinder. No variable valve timing systems with chains that stretch and actuators that fail. No direct injection spraying fuel directly onto valves that can't self-clean. The design philosophy was proven decades before this truck existed. General Motors took a concept that worked and refined it rather than reinventing it for the sake of marketing. Now, these trucks aren't perfect. The 4L60E transmission can be a weak point if you're towing heavy loads constantly. The fuel injectors can develop issues around 150,000 miles. But these are known problems with known solutions. A transmission rebuild runs maybe $2,000. Injector replacement is a weekend job for anyone with basic mechanical skills. Compare that to a modern truck, where the transmission is integrated with software systems that require dealer programming after any service, where the turbocharger, intercooler, and wastegate add 3 more failure points that didn't exist before. Mechanics buy these Silverados because they understand the math. A truck that costs $8,000 used and can hit 300,000 miles with $5,000 in repairs over its lifetime beats a $60,000 truck that's worth $20,000 after 5 years and has a repair bill looming that costs more than the truck's value. That same logic applies to the next truck on this list, but with one major difference. This one was built to haul serious weight. The Ram 2500 with the Cummins diesel is in a different category than everything else we've discussed. And this isn't a light-duty truck that happens to be reliable. This is a heavy-duty workhorse that was engineered from the ground up to hit 500,000 miles. The 5.9-liter Cummins, specifically from 1998 to 2007, has become the gold standard for diesel reliability. The engine uses an inline-6 configuration, which is inherently more balanced than a V8. Less vibration means less wear on internal components over time. But the real genius is what Cummins didn't include. Without no emissions equipment strangling the engine, no complex DEF systems that clog and fail, no exhaust gas recirculation valves coating the intake with soot. These trucks were built during a window when diesel technology was mature, but emissions regulations hadn't yet forced manufacturers to add complexity that hurts long-term durability. That window closed, and every diesel truck since has been more complicated and less reliable as a result. The documented mileage on these trucks is staggering. 400,000 miles is common. 500,000 miles is achievable. There are verified examples with over 700,000 miles still running on original engines. The catch is maintenance costs. Diesel fuel systems are more expensive to repair than gasoline systems. Injectors can run several $100s each, but mechanics who understand diesel engines know that these costs are spread over a much longer lifespan. If you're buying a truck to actually work, to tow trailers, to haul equipment, to put serious miles on year after year, the Cummins Ram has been the answer for a quarter century. And mechanics who do that kind of work buy these trucks because they can't afford to be stranded with a load. The 5th truck on this list might surprise you. It's not American, but it's been quietly proving itself for nearly 2 decades. The 2nd-generation Nissan Frontier, built from 2005 to 2021, holds a strange record. It was produced for 16 years with minimal changes. Now, most manufacturers would see that as a problem. Enthusiasts and mechanics see it differently. When a truck stays in production that long with the same basic design, 2 things happen. First, every flaw gets identified and addressed. Second, parts become absurdly cheap and available because the aftermarket has had nearly 2 decades to tool up. The 4.0-liter V6 in these trucks is a workhorse. It's not the most powerful engine in its class. It's not the most fuel efficient. But it's been refined over millions of miles of real-world use until the failure points were essentially engineered out. The timing chain can become noisy at high mileage. The radiator has a known failure point where transmission fluid can mix with coolant if you don't catch it early. But again, these are documented issues with documented solutions. Any mechanic who's worked on trucks has dealt with both problems dozens of times. What you don't see on the Frontier is the parade of complex systems that plague modern trucks. No 10-speed transmission hunting for gears on the highway, no stop-start system that adds wear to the starter and annoys everyone who drives the truck, no 12-inch touchscreen that costs $2,000 to replace when it inevitably fails. The Frontier is proof that good enough engineering, when left alone long enough, becomes excellent engineering by default. So what do all 5 of these trucks have in common? Why do mechanics spend their own money on them instead of buying something newer with a warranty? The answer is almost too simple to believe. Every truck on this list was designed before the industry decided that trucks needed to be luxury vehicles, before the average transaction price crossed $50,000. Before manufacturers started adding complexity, not because it improved the truck, but because it justified higher prices and created dealer service revenue. These trucks have naturally aspirated engines that don't require premium fuel and don't stress their internals just to meet EPA targets. They have transmissions with 4, 5, or 6 speeds instead of 10 speeds that add weight, complexity, and failure points. They have interiors with physical buttons and switches instead of touchscreens that crash, lag, and need software updates. A mechanic can diagnose any of these trucks with a basic code reader and a multimeter. They can order parts from any supplier and have them delivered overnight. They can do the repair in their own shop without calling a dealer for proprietary unlock codes. That's not true for modern trucks. New vehicles are increasingly locked down, requiring dealer authorization for basic repairs. Parts are serialized and tied to specific VINs. Software integration means that replacing a component often requires programming that independent shops can't access. When mechanics buy trucks for themselves, they're thinking about one thing. What happens when this breaks at 150,000 miles? At 200,000 miles? At 300,000 miles? For these 5 trucks, the answer is simple. You fix it and keep driving. For most modern trucks, the answer is complicated, expensive, and often ends with the truck getting traded in rather than repaired. The data backs this up. IC Cars found that trucks from these generations retain value far better than their age would suggest because buyers know the math. A $10,000 truck that runs another 150,000 miles beats a $50,000 truck that becomes a money pit after the warranty expires. Consumer Reports' long-term reliability data shows the same pattern. The trucks with the highest satisfaction scores at high mileage aren't the newest or most expensive. They're the ones that stayed simple while everything else got complicated. This isn't nostalgia for old trucks. It's recognition of a design philosophy that prioritized durability over features. And until that philosophy comes back, the mechanics who fix trucks for a living will keep buying these 5 models. Because when your paycheck depends on not being stranded on the side of the road, you don't buy the truck with the biggest screen or the most impressive tow rating on paper. You buy the truck that starts every morning and costs hundreds to fix instead of thousands. And that truck, right now, is one of these 5.